Lost my Facebook here, guys. Hold on here. I just lost everything out of the blue. A cat jumped over and landed right on the laptop, and I just went blank here. So I wasn't even sure if I was still on the air. Okay, so without further ado, let me get to my guest. My guest is a man of many, many talents. He's a life coach, a transformational agent, metaphysical rebel, artist, drummer, inspirational speaker, and author, podcaster. In fact, we're going to talk about his new podcast, The Business of Being You. I remember talking about a story where he was called a curse breaker, and I can attest to that. He is a curse breaker. He's a Reiki practitioner, and his passion is just, well, you'll see. You'll be filled with it by the end of this broadcast for sure. He has a special magic with people, and he's able to draw people out from underneath their stories and their limitations. He's a man who can always find a solution to whatever challenge or struggle you can be facing. And I call him the man with the magical laugh because he can heal with his laughter. Join me in welcoming Ade Anawokoshe to the show. Hi, Ade. How you doing?
Hey, Raven. You're speaking about a curse breaker. I think you got a curse of me because every time you say that, I just, on cue, just start laughing. It's like, ah.
Well, that was a story that goes back to your childhood.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. And you definitely helped me remember that. And it's good to remember that. Just some of those things that stick with you, isn't it? Just the short version of it is my parents took us to this minister pastor, but in Nigeria, just because someone is a Christian doesn't mean they weren't practicing the traditional way. Which for the most part, I don't know if I'll say for the most part, but it has been contaminated. So there's a negative connotation about our culture, our tradition, our spirituality, partly because of Christianity, and just because people, whatever the reason is. But anyway, so she sort of practiced both. And one of the things, basically, my parents went over for a reading. And one of the things she said was, Leia, if there is a curse or a negative spell, and if I say that has no power over me or over anybody, it just basically breaks the curse. And somehow that hit me, and I never forget. I don't know. I must have been like maybe 10 years old. But it's something about that, and I very rarely think about it. But when you're around, it comes up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's part of who I am. So thank you for reminding me. And it's good to, because for me, what I get from it, yeah, there are many ways we can look at it. But I know that everyone comes here with a unique quality. And it took me a while to understand and embrace that one of my gifts is communicating. And sometimes there is a conviction in me that I can't even tell you where it comes from. And I still feel sometimes I kind of hold back because I'm afraid how it's going to sound. But I also make space for it. So it's good to have that reference, like, oh yeah, someone saw this in me. And it's a reminder of what I'm here to do. And we all have our role to, we have something we're here to do on this earth, on this planet. So yes, I'm the curse breaker.
You do, and you have that gift. You really do. Claim it all the way because when you laugh, you get the laughing. I mean, sometimes it's contagious. And that's a good thing. I mean that in a good way.
Right.
I can be in the sourest of moods.
Are you saying You saying I'm a good pandemic?
Yeah, you're a good pandemic. Yeah. Just your laugh, so that you just lift me right up, and so that's why I always call you the man with the magical laugh. And that, in a way, is breaking a curse, that curse of negativity.
Yeah.
That we all get in a funk, and you just have a fresh breath of enthusiasm for life, and a wonderful perspective, and you just have this enthusiasm about you and an energy about you, and it just lifts people up, and it's just natural. You're not even trying hard to do that. It's just you.
Thank you, Raven.
I thought we all needed a dose of you today because it's been rough. We're here at the end of August, and of course this whole year has been so wacky. and crazy. But things have lately been getting really heavy. And so I'm just so glad you were able to come today and kind of just lift us up.
Well, I thought 2020 was the best year we've ever had, isn't it? I mean, this is the best year ever. I mean, things are happening, new realizations are showing up, things that we didn't want to look at is revealing itself. I mean, come on, this is the best year ever.
That's why I have you here today, because you have that optimism and that different perspective that we all need. Like, oh my God, it's going to be over.
Well, so here's what I'll say. This year, 2020, is a year that I say that tells us this is showtime. Like some of us has been rehearsing, practicing for this moment. Some of us were just extras, so we were getting ready for our place to be an extra in this year. And I also see this year as a year of transformation.
Absolutely.
The beauty of it, there are many, and as challenging as it is, heartbreaking, and people, I don't want to say that's challenging as it is, but what I'll say it this way, that yes, there are people going through some very, very tough times. And it's funny because on some level, it can seem like we didn't have any practice for this. But then, as I say that, I think most of us I'm generalizing, so I'll go with that, know that I'm generalizing, that those of us in the Western world, we didn't have enough to practice for this. In America, there was a short practice during 9/11, and even that was a wake-up call in America. But there are places in the world where it may not be a virus, but that if it wasn't one thing, is another, that they're constantly trying to survive and rise above and pull together. So it may be challenging more for those of us in the West, because we have all kind of protections and privilege, power and all kind of stuff. But now, in a way, it's like we're all on an even territory for the most part when it comes to life, because we are now forced to think of our mortality. We're forced to ask questions. Who am I? Who do I have a community? Where do I go? What am I to do?
Where's my tribe?
Where's my tribe? Yeah, I was going to say that, but there's a reason I didn't say it, because I heard something recently. But even though what I heard, it is what it is, but somehow I was going to say tribe, and I kind of didn't want to say it. But anyway, that's a whole different conversation. But thank you for pulling it out. Yeah, people were looking for their tribe, and now we know what it's like to be in a tribe. And I go with that, because being in a tribe means you're close to people. And we're now in a place where we are experiencing one another, people in different countries, in such an intimate way that is sometimes painful. It's too much to deal with. And we're constantly being bombarded with how many people are dying. And that's one thing we don't talk about. And also, that's something that we're all afraid of. Again, I'm generalizing. Not all of us, but I generalize. Most of us are afraid of dying or losing people that we love. And I really believe, because we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We act like it's not going to happen. We pretend we're all going to be like 150 before it happens to us, or we pray that's the case. But it can happen anytime. So for me, I feel like this year has given us an opportunity to ask ourselves deeper questions. What do you believe? What do you stand on? What is your truth? And how do you have the tools to navigate this? And it's tough. And especially for people who don't think they have the tools to navigate these moments that we're going through. And it's also a good place to put what we do know. Those of us who have the tools, those of us who've been practicing, it's a good opportunity to be of service. Not out of obligation, not because you think you should, but from a place of being in service to love. What can I give? What is mine to offer? So, it is messy, it is challenging, it is hard. And I also say 2020 is an answered prayer. We've all been praying for this. We've been visioning for this. We've been affirming this. We didn't know that's what we're praying for, visioning for, and affirming. Because in order for the new to be revealed, everything unlike the new must be revealed like first. So you can see, if you're gardening, you got to till the soil, you got to get the weed out. And before you plant. You said what?
I said it's got to get messy and dirty.
Messy and dirty. Birthing is messy. Like my mentor would say, if we see a woman birthing, giving birth to a child, and we don't know what's going on, we'll think she's dying. If you can just look through the glass like, oh my God, that person's going to die. Then we find out they're having a baby, they're giving birth, we're like, oh, okay, oh my God, that must be painful. And that's what I believe we're going through and growing through. We are birthing a new reality. Wasn't it in year 2012 that there was this noise about, and I don't mean that in a judgmental way, but it was a lot of noise about we're moving into unity consciousness. Mm-hmm. Well, this is what moving into unity consciousness looks like. Because in order to unite, there's some things we're going to find out about one another that's not pleasing, that is not pleasant, that we don't like. And anything unlike unity will show up in how we're dealing with it. And we see it happening in America. We see it happen over here. The abuse of women in other countries, domestic violence. And we all find ourselves asking ourselves, what's really going on? Well, this is what's going on. There's no need to be asking what's really going on. What's really going on is what's going on. And so it's time for us to, show up however we need to show up. For some people, it may be time for them to just sit back and rest. And for some people, it might be a time to get up and get in action. But we all have to decide what that is for us.
I like the way that I never thought of it that way. That yes, we were all wanting this unity consciousness, and these are the birthing pains of getting there. Mm-hmm. Nicely put. I never thought of it like that. Speak to the racial tension. What is going on there? Are we going to pull out of this? Okay. Oh, I'm just so saddened by what I see. I'm just so saddened by this, and I just wish some people would just take that seat back and just shut their mouth and grow up and stop all this violence. We just don't need this violence. What do you do with this?
Well, speak to it. Well, it's nothing new what's going on. It's new to some people, and it's new to a lot of white people.
I thought we were past all this.
White people thought that. You would never meet a black person that would say that. That's the thing. That's the thing. You will never meet a black person. Say that again?
I said I thought we had all that sort of stuff, worked out in Martin Luther King's era.
No, we didn't have it worked out. They killed him. What are you talking about? They killed him. They were like, shut up. Don't talk about poor people. Don't talk about racial equity. Shut up. They killed him. I mean, you can research and see what FBI did and all the crap that they did. No. We nowhere near past it. You have a president in America who's saying, basically, he's sticking his finger up to people who might talk about what's going on in the world. Just talk about, I'm a president of law and order. He never speaks to it. No. We wouldn't, it would, there are a lot of people, and particularly in America, there are a lot of people, and I would say a lot of white people that thought, because now America elected a black president, then, we've moved beyond it. But we cannot move, you cannot move, I'm not just talking about America, I'm talking about globally and individually. We cannot move beyond something until we're willing to acknowledge it.
Okay.
The enslaving of Africans has never fully been acknowledged in America, where no leader said, that was injustice and we apologize for it. They don't want to do it because they feel like, then it's going to cost them some money. They put profit before people. To get beyond it, let's just maybe be specific for a minute. To get beyond the racial injustice, it has to be acknowledged. The truth needs to be spoken. It needs to be, I don't even want to say a leader that's courageous enough. A president, I don't think America is there where we have that right now, where there could be a president to speak to it. Barack Obama couldn't speak to it. People thought he should have, but he couldn't. It really wasn't, it's not his to do. The healing of racism is white people's work. And Barack Obama couldn't speak to it. It's kind of like, a woman who's experiencing domestic violence. People might feel sad and think it's horrible, but, if she has a cause, they're like, that's so sad. But if the man, assuming there's a man that's abusing her, decides to turn around and recognize, I've done some evil shit, and I'm turning around, and he starts speaking up, somehow there is a listening for it, because generally speaking, I like to say that because, it's when you narrow it down to the individuals, it's different. But generally speaking, the statistics of men abusing women is far more higher. And it is for men. That's for men to heal. Sometimes men gather together and they say, oh, my wife, my woman, my girl was acting so, oh yeah, sometimes women are just whatever. They just too much. No, we got to call us, the men, men got to call themselves out and call their brothers out. Like, no, that is unacceptable. Driving down the street and you see a man beating up on a woman or yelling at a woman, you might want to say something. So it's the same thing about racism. This is white people's work to do. And so the good thing about all that's happening and the people who have sacrificed their life for healing to happen, for change to happen, for transformation to happen, is an opportunity for white people to say, oh my God, this is still happening? And whether you feel like that, and I say you, not you, Raven, I'm talking generally, it's fine. I do a lot of different things, and part of the work that I'm doing is racial equity and transformation. And sometimes we still hear people saying, I feel ashamed by what we did to people of color, black people. And I get that. But I think right now it is time to move beyond feeling guilty, feeling ashamed. And actually, now I won't say move beyond that. Feel the shame, feel the guilt, and take action. Feel the guilt, feel the shame, and take action. And there's a lot of information out there. The violence, sometimes some people are more interested in talking about, why can't they protest more peacefully? Because they haven't been living in peace. They haven't been living in peace.
Right. They don't know what peace is.
It's in America, if you stop 10 African American parents, I'm telling you, if not all of them, 9 out of 10 will tell you, yes, I've had to have a conversation with my children about when they get stopped by a police officer, to be polite, it's what they call the talk. It is horrible to watch. It is horrible to see. It is horrible to hear that it's a black. How many times have we seen black men shot, running away from the police, walking away from the police in the back, and then police officers say that they were afraid for their lives. And sometimes, it's hard to have those kind of conversations because there's some people always going to deny it's happening, and that's fine. And then the second thing is, America as a country hasn't apologized for it and really own the injustice. It's really like the African Holocaust, to really say we've done some things that we need to be ashamed of. But what happens is people who don't want to feel, who don't want to because really they have protection. So to feel, so when they hear, people don't want to feel when they hear Black Lives Matter, something in them knows I can't allow myself to go there because if I go, there's going to be too much. I don't want to experience cognitive dissonance. So they come from their head and instantly say, all lives matter.
Yeah.
If all lives matter and you hear somebody say Black Lives Matter and you believe and know that all lives matter, you might want to say, oh, why are you saying that again? Tell me more about that. But if that's your rebuttal to somebody saying Black Lives Matter, then you're not interested. You know, basically you're making a conscious choice to be blind. And it's not easy work. It's not easy work. And I get that too. But unless people are willing to do their part, it would go on for as long as it needs to be. And some people are going to die out with their belief system and the cell memory that they carry from the past. You know, there are people alive today whose grandparents, grandmothers, well, let me say grandparents, stood around and lynched African Americans. They're part of that lineage. There are people who went to see that. That's in their cell. It's in their body. So they're carrying that with them too. They may not know it. And then there are people whose brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers were lynched. They're alive today too. That all lives in us. And there's something about our truth and reconciliation, to just speak the truth about the atrocity, the injustice, the oppression, so that we can all heal. And personally, I'm part of an organization and that does a lot of different things in the art world. And one of the things that we're focusing on is racial equity and transformation. And there's some things that we're putting in place. And for those of us, they use an acronym now, BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Those of us from the BIPOC community sometimes feel overwhelmed to move things forward because we're also being re-traumatized. It's hard to want to be part of something, of how do we move forward and trying to put some things in place while seeing somebody that looks like you be killed, be abused.
Oh, I can't. I mean, that's
so it's like there's a re-traumatization that happens. I was saying recently, it's like sometimes if you've ever been any kind of abuse or been traumatized, and somehow not you, Raven, again, but right. If the person managed to figure a way around it, or let's use that example of a woman who is abused in domestic violence. She finds a way to leave. She finds a way to take her children. She moves to another state, another country. If one day she decides to heal that because she sees what's showing up for her, even the process of talking about it is re-traumatizing. So when I said earlier about only white people thought racism was over, it's like for people of color, Black people, there's a re-traumatization that happens. Like, okay, now I can talk about it. People are listening. People are doing a lot of great work. A lot of people doing great work. People are learning. Most of it's not on television. We just hear the other side. But it's like we all got to learn to come back to the heart, pay attention to our bodies, because it is messy, messy, messy work. And injustice is not just an American thing, it is global. However, when it comes to racism, America took it and hit a home run with it. I once heard, I think, what's his name? The guy who does the show from South Africa. I know his name. I can almost hear it. It'll come back to me. The comedian it'll come to me. But anyway, it said people in South Africa came to America to study racism in America.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So anyway, that's what I think about it. There's more, but that's about it. and those are things we're navigating. Those are the things we're navigating. And we have to be honest with how we feel about it. Spiritual bypassing ain't gonna work. If you try to spiritual bypass, that's even more traumatic.
There are white people traumatized by this also.
Yeah, of course.
Those that were persecuted and killed, that were part of the Underground Railroad, trying to free them. Those that lost their lives in the Civil War, trying to free them. And I guess for me, I've never had any racism feelings or witnessed anything like that. So forgive my ignorance for thinking that this whole thing was kind of dealt with. I've always had good relationships with people of color.
Well, it's good.
Had any exposure to this sort of, deep-seated, resentment that you're seeing on TV play out. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Well, and I want to say this. I mean, it's understandable that, when you say, not even this, I personally don't think it's important to really, I mean, you can, and I hear you, but it's really, I think when we put things into perspective, and I can understand somebody saying, I apologize for my ignorance, but if friends of mine or people that I know some people and, there's a party happening somewhere, if they say, oh, me and my friends and the person, I'm being invited, and say, oh, I'm inviting some friends of mine, and we're going to a club, or we're going to a center, or we're going to a conference, we're going for this workshop, or concert, whatever it is. Oh, do you want to come? I'd be like, well, let me see if I'm available. And then I might think, okay, am I going to drive? Am I going to park somewhere? Am I going to take public transport? I am not going to think about the accessibility of that building.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Why? Because I've never been in a wheelchair. It's not my reality. But someone who's using a wheelchair, that will be one of the questions that they're going to ask.
Right.
That's going to be one of the things like, well, how accessible is this building? And not having to think about stuff like that is privilege. There's nothing wrong with privilege. We all have privilege. It's part of life. Growing up in Nigeria, if you're 1 year or 2 years older than someone, the ones who are younger than you have to respect you just by default. They can't call you by your name, and by your name, they have to say uncle this, auntie that, or brother, auntie. If you have children, they will call you by the name of your children. So if I had a child and someone younger than me might say Baba Ade, I'm just using my name to make it easier. Baba means father, so they're saying the father of the child's son. They will never call you by your first name. So because I'm older, it doesn't matter if I'm related to this younger person in Nigeria. I can ask them go do things for me. I can send them on an errand to go do my groceries, to wash my clothes, just because I'm older than them. So that is privilege. It happens in many ways. So yeah, people who don't know is because one, they were shielded from it. And there was no reason to know. If you lived in an area where there wasn't a lot of African Americans, where people know the stories, and we all have implicit bias. It's part of being human. We just got to tell the truth. We got to tell the truth. There are times when, not as much now. Actually, I don't remember the time I really felt that. But I remember many years ago. I think it was around 2000, because at that point, I was in America and then I moved back to UK. And so it must have been around 2002. I was working in a place called Brixton, which is sort of like a city area. And I remember when I'm walking down the street and I see a group of black boys, I'm like, oh, let me, pace myself and really focus and feeling some kind of anxiety. But if I see a group of white boys, I didn't feel nothing. I'm like, whatever. It took me a while to realize that even I, and I say even I, not like I'm special, but I have internalized the oppression, the implicit bias, because there's so many reasons. One is when African Americans, black people are portrayed as criminals. And you keep hearing it all the time. you're
True.
just going to believe it without even knowing you believe it. That's why Trump can say some things that don't make any sense, but he will keep repeating it. He knows if he says it long enough, people are going to think it's true. So, we just have to really be honest and honest with ourselves and say, being humans ain't easy. Life is not for wimps. It's challenging. And we have to do things to protect ourselves, and we get to really, in essence, protect ourselves or not, but we all just do whatever we need to do based on whatever we think we need to do. Because people who don't want to hear are never going to hear.
What can we do to get over this, to heal this?
The name I was trying to remember is Trevor Noah. Thank you, Quali. Trevor Noah, right. What can we do to get over this? I'll say feel what we feel and deal with it. Don't bypass. You can't heal what you don't feel. And if you don't deal with it. And there are those who don't want to deal with it. So individually, we got to do our work. There's some things I'm learning. There are things I'm learning about myself. There are ways that I've internalized the oppression. For white people, it's learn, pick up books, waking up white. What's the other one? So everything just kind of is gonna come to me now. The one by Robin DiAngelo. I'll Google it. But it's like there's so many information right now on Facebook. I mean, sometimes you don't even know which one is which. But people who are willing to be part of the healing, they can find the information they need. So it's committing to paying attention. And we can start with, what are the biases that I hold about black people, indigenous people, people of color? And sometimes it comes out in the most, not neutral, but the least expect way. Sometimes when we're talking with friends, if we pay attention, we'll hear the things that we're saying. We just got to tell the truth. We got to tell the truth to ourselves. Like, yeah, I do have judgment about black people. Or if we start to justify why, well, black people are lazy or whatever the story is, we need to be willing to catch ourselves and call ourselves out. Like any other healing, we just got to be willing to do something about it. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm trying to. Okay, here it is. I think I have the book too, but I can't remember the name of the book. But no, I'm not googling it right. Quali, help me out. It's a book on white supremacy. I got it on my phone somewhere, but go ahead. I'll pull it up and tell you. That's one book that I think could really help people who wanna, particularly white people. And when me reading that book, there were some things I didn't even have to think about. I never thought about.
We have so much more in common than what's being acknowledged. And I just want this violence to end. We're all one. We all need to come together. And it's just so, it just pains me when I see this on news. It just pains me deeply. I can't even finish watching it, and it stirs me up emotionally. It really does.
Let me ask you this. And I ask not to put you on the spot, but I believe it can be helpful for people. And so it pains you. When you're having that experience, what do you do in that moment?
What do I do in that moment?
Yeah. How do you navigate it? Because you're watching or hearing things that just breaking your heart open. Okay.
I'm about ready to cry right. Yeah, I cried.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. It's so unnecessary. It was a tragic thing that happened. And it should have never happened. And I just want us to get past it and be done with it. What's done is done. I mean, we can't change history, but moving forward, we can change some of those stereotypes like that you mentioned. And yeah. I blame the news for a lot of that. I blame the news for a lot of that. They're always talking about, all the violent crimes. It's always, it's always, the violence is always blamed on the black people. And it makes other white people then afraid if they're not exposed to black people. And I've had a lot of exposure to black people, and I've never had any racist, situations ever in my, people. We lived in a community that was about 60 houses in Orlando, Florida, when I was married to my husband. And there were only 4 white families in the whole 60 house community. And I got on with everybody just fine. We all, had little garage parties and little neighborhood parties. And the girls were teaching me how to dance because I'm a white chick and I ain't got no rhythm. They were teaching me some dance moves, and we just all had fun. And there was never any of that. So that's why I'm just ignorant to this,
Well, the thing also, it's like, yeah, there are people who can identify what you're saying, and what was done is still being done. I mean, because it's not just how black people are treated. Yes, it's that, but there's systemic racism, institutionalized racism, white supremacy. It's woven into the fabric of America, and it shows up in all kind of ways. So that's one reason why it's still alive. Do you think if America had a black president, do you think the black president could have done half of what Donald Trump is doing? Donald Trump is getting away with what he's doing, one, because he's a white man. He's white and he's a man. If he wasn't white, oh yeah. To be honest, all right. And he represents, it's not just him, he represents the mindsets of some people in America. If he steps down today, that racism and that xenophobia and all the things that we're bombarded is still alive. I was watching something today on CNN, and they said the crime committed by white supremacist organization has gone up, but it's never reported like that. It's never reported like that. When people of color are protesting, black people protesting, and then out of their frustration, they break things down. People talk about why they're breaking down, they're doing whatever they say. They're breaking down stuff in their neighborhood. They're called thugs. When white young people go to watch hockey and their team wins and they jump in on cars, they're like, oh, they're so passionate about their sports. But white supremacy, it's woven into so many things. So what actions can we take? Well, maybe one action, because I see a question here. Cindy said, what actions? Some of the things that could be done is for white people to read books about people of color, black people. Learn about the culture. Go. Here, this one might be a shocker. Research Birth of a Nation, a movie that came out, was it in the 50s or something? And just look at the propaganda. So it's not just the fact that, this idea of black people being violent, and the woman, particularly I'm talking about America, but it happens here in UK too. Like I said, America's on the stage. America's on the stage. It's like mastered this marketing program. The Birth of a Nation was a movie that was about 2 to 3 hours long. And white people paint their face black and they magnify the stereotypes, the fears that they had about black people. So if you're young or not, you're young in mind, you're not mature, then you're looking at that. Whether you want to believe it or not, you're being programmed. You watch it. It's recorded into your mind. It's like if you go watch a horror movie and it was so nicely, I'm doing air quotes, nicely done, written, that, you get outside and someone comes, oh my God, you scared me. Because you've been programmed, whether it's temporarily or not, your mindset has been tuned to be afraid. So this thing that we're dealing with right now, it's been going on for years. Black people black people in America were never meant to be seen as human beings. When they say, 3/5 of a human being? It was really to use the slaves to add numbers for representation. It wasn't like, oh, they're not human, they're 3/5 of a human being. No, it was because when they were counting people and property so that white men could have a vote, a voice in the Senate, they had to use, they were using their property, so they made black people 3/5 of a human being, so they can add to it.
They did that with Native Americans.
Yes, and they didn't. Yes, they did that. So it's all in the Constitution, and that really never changed. Slavery never ended. Like my mentor would say, it got repurposed. So yes, everybody is free. And you can't have slaves anymore unless you're a criminal. So you look at the prison system and the percentage of black people that are in there, and how many black people and white people, but we're talking about talking from a racial perspective now. How many, the numbers of black people that are in jail, people that are arrested, how many people have been arrested for a crime they didn't commit? And
the ratio's got to be at least 3 or 4 to 1.
Oh, probably more.
Probably more. Yeah.
So, and we see it. Even during this campaign in America about election, it's always about black. There's white. It's America is so it's a body politics, identity politics. Well, the white people going to vote for Joe Biden. Well, black women have always been Democrats. That's really what's running. It's like that's the thing. The country feeds on that separation. And if we want to heal it, yeah, we got to heal the sense of separation. The minute we other somebody, that's a problem. What we're dealing with is we're othering people. And we don't just other people of color. We other someone for their sexual orientation, their gender. We other people for their religious beliefs. Yes. And the minute we do that, oh yeah, we're causing harm already.
Sid has a comment in the chat room. Says, why is it in the USA when someone is a minority, the media almost always mentions the person's ancestral heritage, unless it's obvious or understood? It isn't anybody's business. Why the emphasis? It puts just more focus on the being different factor.
Well, my guess is they do that because the people that run the news corporations are part of the white supremacist gang of people that wants to keep keeping that message out there. That's why Donald Trump can say, I'm a president of law and order, because people have been convinced to be afraid, programmed to be afraid of black people, indigenous people, people of color. So I'm the one that's going to protect your family, because people are worried about, well, many years, what was it, 2040, 2020, not 2025, 2042 or something, that they're going to be, the racial identity of America is going to change. So if we feel like we're separated from somebody, or we're better than someone, and it looks like more of them is coming, that's a threat to my identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. What disturbs me about the whole movement of Black Lives Matter is the founder. You can trace this all back to a white guy, George Soros, who's been a troublemaker and is anti-American all the way. And it's like, they've done this. There's a whole group of, there's a foundation of them. But yet everyone in that foundation is white.
What do you mean? You talking about Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
Well, I don't know that. I've never heard that. First time I'm hearing it. But here's what I would say. Those things, and if it is true,
it seems they're fueling this.
Well, if it's true, I can see that. But what I will say is sometimes we get distracted by those kind of information. It's a distraction. Because yes, I believe that there were people who were protesting. They weren't really for Black Lives Mattering. They just wanted to instigate trouble. But the thing is, yes, that is happening. I'm not even saying ignore it. If it's true, don't ignore it. But we still gotta go back to the root of it. There's this whole thing about racial injustice, about white supremacy. White is better than. The reason why Barack Obama is considered a black man is because there is the one drop rule. There's the rule that if you have a drop of another race in you, if you're a white person, then you're no longer white, because white is supposed to be the purest.
Oh, that just frustrates me. It takes me back to something that I believe it was Ronald Reagan, in his address to the UN, had said one time. He said, and I can't quote it word for word, but here's the gist of it. I wonder how fast our differences between each other would drop if we were faced with an alien invasion.
Yeah, that usually...
We all have to band together against a common enemy. How fast would we drop all of this stuff and finally come together?
Yeah. But that's usually temporary, though. People did that during 9/11, and then people go back to their regular selves. That's usually... But, even the Ronald Reagan and the presidents of the past, what they've done to black community. Look in the history of Black Panther. America always gets afraid when black people come together. So look at what they did. They infiltrated the Black Panther. They infiltrated Malcolm X because there was too much power to have a black man. I mean, there was a guy in Atlanta many years ago, maybe about 4 years ago, came to the airport with his daughter who was traveling with a gun. I don't know if it was one of those big guns. I don't know about guns, but I see that gun. That's not a gun to mess with. Police eventually escorted him to the car. And you can carry a gun openly, but if a black man carries that same kind of gun, well, we don't even need to even have that conversation, because how many black men are being, black men and women, because that doesn't always get doesn't get as much attention. Black men and women and children get killed and don't even have a gun. They're walking away or running away. So yeah, going back is a good way to clean the mess so we can move forward differently. And I recommend, thank you, Kwali, people can go on Netflix and watch the 13th. It says a lot about the 13th Amendment. It's all in there. The stories are there, but we are waking up to it, and it is troubling. But it's all about intent. We must all be, maybe not all, but it doesn't even require everybody to do something. But if we just tell the truth about what we feel, and so we're not just talking about what we feel, we're having that conversation with our children, with our nieces and nephews. We challenge our own self. We challenge our own self that we all have implicit biases. We do. It's part of being human. No matter where we're born, we all have it. It's a human thing. We always want to be better than another. So if I'm in power, if I feel like I'm better than you, I want to be better than you, I'm going to suppress you. I'm going to oppress you.
1 minute.
So, yeah.
Jen has a good comment here in the chat room also. She said, we can't change history, but we can change and must change the narrative about and around history.
Mm-hmm. And call out history, because some of the history is not the truth. It's been changed.
Yeah.
Tell the whole story.
Written by the victors.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
This has been a wonderful conversation. Totally unscripted. What we were talking about today, didn't we?
Yeah, I was like, okay.
We had this conversation.
This is where we're going? I'm like, okay, this is where we're going.
Hey, it's the rabbit hole, so man, you can go anywhere.
That's true. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll respond to the question or comments in the chat room in a few. And it's nice to see people that I haven't seen in a long time. Jan, TC, Cindy. There's some other people. I know we got to go, so let me stop doing a shout out.
Tell us real quick about your new podcast.
Well,
Being You.
Okay, so because I know we got to go. So you can find it on Facebook and YouTube. If you go to facebook.com, Being You Podcast, that will take you to it. And yes, okay, thank you. On YouTube, if you go to the YouTube channel, Life Conversations Media, you find it there.
And you're doing interviews with people and working through their issues.
On Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, if people want to, they want to sit and work through what they're dealing with, they get a whole hour with me and we get to go through it live on the show. Just them, just one-on-one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the links that you have, it explains it to them, and people can reach out to me if they want to find out more.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being in the rabbit hole with me today all day. I just love you so much.
I love you too, Raven. Thank you.
Listening to 122radio.com, where we are changing the way you listen to a changing world. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're out.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks,
Hey,
Raven.
talk to you guys later. Gotta go.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was fun. Thank you, Kwali. Yeah, we didn't really have a topic. I kept saying, what topic we're talking about? I said, well, you do what we normally do. And I was okay with that. And this is where the conversation went. So, yeah, there's a lot we need to face. And I'm grateful for what I know, that I could do my best to represent and represent the story that wants to be told and represent my ancestors in the way I need to tell it. She certainly let me loose. She sure did. She tends to do that. And, I just got to be true to what wants to be spoken. And for me, Kwali, one of the things that I struggled with when I was at 1-2 Radio was sometimes not being able to really say what I wanted to say, because I was afraid of hurting people's feelings. Or 1-2 Radio, my guess is there are more white women listening than black people of color, BIPOC. So I let loose every now and then, but a lot has changed for me. If you don't want to know, don't ask. But and it's not. I'm not going to say what I'm not trying to do. What I would say, I'm trying to educate. My work is about transformation. It's about healing, and that's so. And we can't heal what we don't feel and what we don't deal with. As you know, you hear Rev D say that a lot. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity. Excuse me. Thank you, everyone. Those of you that are watching this live, and those of you who are watching the archive, thank you. Thank you, Kwali. It's always nice to see you. Yeah, especially during this conversation. Having another black person there, it's one of those things. Okay, I thought I was wrapping up. It's one of those things that you don't know until you know, but knowing that you were there felt very supportive. And especially, I'm talking to people that I don't see them. So, don't know how it's landing. People can write whatever they want. I assume and sense that, people are hearing because they know me. And the conversation that happens on 1-2 Radio. But there's also something to just have somebody that vibrates like you. It's like being in a choir. It's not a solo. Well, it's a solo, but somebody's back there adding a little bit of, while you're doing your solo. That's what it was like for me. It's like, ooh, I like what I'm hearing back there. Even though they don't see you, it was juicing me up. There's a lot of comment in the chat room. Whoosh, I'm going to have to go to this. I don't know if I'm going to do all of this tonight. All right, my dear sister, my friends, everybody. Thank you very much. Yes, you did. And there are a lot of white people to feel that. I get it. When you're protected from it, you're going to think it's over until it's like happening. And I think some white people can't believe that what is happening is because of racism, because they believe it was over. It's like, it can't be. This is just gang members. This is just people who are violent because they have been conditioned, programmed to believe it's not true. That is over. It's in history. When it comes to Africans who were enslaved, how indigenous people, Native Americans, whose children was ripped away from them, when it comes to that story, we say, it's in the past. But when it comes to Holocaust, when it comes to Even 9/11. Never forget. Yeah. Anyway. Thank you, everyone. Peace and blessings.